What's up, everybody? I'm Abatage, and welcome to this final year chat slash recording discussion, whatever, for Fantasy Critic League with myself and my good friend FrozenRoy. Hello, FrozenRoy.
Hello, Abatage. It's me, FrozenRoy, and we've got a hot one this time.
Ooh, has it been exciting? Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm commentating an actual live sport, but not really.
But we're gonna get better ratings than Madden. That's what I'm gonna say.
Wouldn't be hard. Yeah, I think this is obviously going to be our wrap up for the year because it's getting late in the year, and unfortunately, there's no clear winner. Like often when we do this recording, we already kind of know who's going to win anyway. But right now, it's like it's anyone's game, really.
It's pretty close. I mean, even just slight point adjustments could decide the winner at this point.
Yep, and much to my disappointment. But let's have a look at the leaderboard. So let's kick it off with that. I will be talking about 2024 stuff later in this recording, so if you want to skip to that, do so. But otherwise, hang around and we'll talk about that later. But initially, we're just going to go through what's happened since our last recording in September. But yeah, the leaderboard I think is the most interesting thing right now because it seems to change every single day, and the entire top half are still in contention to win the whole thing.
I mean, the difference between first and fourth is about 3 points. That tells you a lot right there.
Yeah. And anyone who's been watching the Discord channel has seen me posting screenshots of my position swapping with dragons because we keep swapping as our recent game releases get adjusted with scores. But I'm happy to say that at time of recording, I am in first place.
Yep, by about 2 points over Leo, actually.
Yeah, not a lot, but enough. I was saying to Fro beforehand, I still don't necessarily expect to win, even though I'm sitting in first place right now, but I've got no more releases. And there are some releases coming up which could change a few things.
That's true. We got some people who are a bit further down, I'd say, even could charge up potentially.
So yeah, to go through it, at the moment, I am in first place. I've got 101.98 points. And I have no releases left. I've got no budget left. That's all for me. No more coming in for December. I'm out.
Yeah, not unless that Last of Us multiplayer game drops.
Yeah, and the shadow drop of Silksong at the Game Awards, which will just ruin everything, but will be unexpected.
So sad.
And I wouldn't be too surprised, to be honest. But but yeah, in second place we've got Low, who's been bouncing around at the top for quite a while, but unfortunately has no budget left, has 9 releases and an empty slot on their roster, which could be filled if they had some money to bid on something, but unfortunately they're only like 1 or 2 points behind me currently.
Yeah, if I were them, I'd be trying desperately just to offload one game for even $1. Maybe $2.
Yeah, throw up a trade to someone.
Yeah. Can't hurt, right?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, they're either stuck where they are or they'll have to get ahead by doing some trades. Similarly, to jump ahead a couple in fourth place is Alex, who doesn't have an empty slot but has an unreleased game which is not going to release by Sons of the Forest.
And unfortunately for him, he has no budget left.
And yeah, also has no budget, so no budging with no budget. But in third place before Alex, though, at the moment is Dragon H89, which, as I said, he and I for the last week, it seems, have been swapping places in first and second. But just today, as before we recorded, he dropped down to third again must have been an adjustment on some game or a bad review came in to bring the score down another point.
Had to be just like some kind of very slight review change.
Yeah. And which is a surprise because his latest release, which I believe was the Super Mario Wonder.
Yeah, I think that's the way. Well, there's also Lords of the Fallen, which we around the same time in October.
Yeah.
Either one
Super
of those.
Mario Brothers Wonder, though, yeah, that's a high-scoring game, but maybe that I haven't been paying attention that closely to know what has actually adjusted to shift Dragon around that much.
Probably have to, really go through and look. It could even just be like a random review of a very older game that it released, honestly.
Whoa, true, yeah. It could just be something we're not even thinking of that has changed. But moving on to 5th place is where you are, old FrozenRoy.
With me awaiting some reviews.
Yes, you've had a full roster release, but not all of them have not all of them have received points.
Mm-hmm.
I think, okay, Dragon Quest Monsters hasn't got an Open Critic link yet. Dungeons of Aether is still not, still doesn't have any points.
It's never happening.
Yeah, I think that came out in February. I don't think it's going to get points now.
Pretty much. Although I swear, if a freaking Dragon Quest game does not get reviews.
Yeah, that would be weird, to be honest. Not that I know much about this particular release, but yeah, I'd be surprised just because...
It's basically an older side series they had that's basically Dragon Quest Pokemon.
Yeah. And to be fair, it only just came out today on the 1st of December, which is when we're recording this.
Yeah, so that's my hope.
Yeah, fair enough. Give it another week, you might have some more points. And it might be good for you as well, because you are only about 12 or 13 points away from first position at the moment.
Yeah, I'm 12.6.
Yeah, and that's not it's not so much that it's not doable.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very much within reach, which is kind of applicable to the next few places as well. Because right behind you in 6th place is Cafrel.
Yeah, poor Cafrel. Cafrel actually, I will note, by the way, that Cafrel will actually have a higher score at the end of the year because Valiant Hearts has a Metacritic score.
Yes, very good, yes.
I think it's only like 72. It's only 2 more points.
Still,
but that would mean Cafrel, if I didn't get anything, would go above me.
Yeah, I mean, their only unreleased title that could release is Metroid Prime 4. Yeah. And kind of feel like at this stage of the game, it probably isn't going to release.
Not unless we get the shocking Game Awards shadow drop.
Yeah, everything comes out at the Game Awards, and we're all fucked.
I mean, I think if Metroid Prime 4 came out in the Game Awards, everybody would just lose their mind in general.
Oh, totally. It would be a good move for the actual game.
Yeah, get all eyes on it, I'll tell you that.
And, I could see that getting more than 12 points, so there is a world where Cafrel wins still.
Metroid Prime 4, I would be surprised if it only reviewed at an 82, honestly.
Oh, totally. I'd definitely expect more like 90s.
Yeah, and then that would boost Cafrel to the win for sure.
Like if Metroid Prime 4 doesn't come out this year, which, likelihood it probably won't, I can see it being picked pretty quickly next year.
It's such a risk. It feels like it's the Hollow Knight Silk Song of Nintendo right now.
It is really, isn't it?
R2D2 is also kind of close, but unfortunately for them, their only game is Metroid Prime 2 Remastered unannounced.
Yeah, I mean, R2 has they've still got some budget, so if they manage to get rid of something, they could possibly get something. But
I mean,
it's a little late in the game for that, probably.
You'd have to try to trade it around to someone.
And I don't think you'll get rid of an unannounced game at this time of year very easily.
No, not really. If there was a player at like a super drop or something, but I think all the super drops aren't really here right now.
Yep. And finally, the last one that I put into contention, even though others could still be, but the last one I put into actual contention is Clumsy Penguin.
Yeah.
The last month has been the month of Clumsy Penguin.
Yeah.
Because they've gone from...
They woke from their slumber and just started going crazy.
Yeah. They went from like a half-filled roster to a full roster where everything's coming out. And they've still got like a few left for the year that haven't been released.
And they've had some really good hits like Risk of Rain Returns.
Yeah. I kind of had half written off because they hadn't done much for most of the year. But
I mean, yeah, it kind of just seemed like they were, just kind of not playing much, honestly. But
I mean, they had 4 releases in November alone.
Yeah, they just
and
were like,
then,
"Oh, it's still going. Better get on it."
Well, and then 3 more to come. So there's 7 just in the very end of the year here, which is
it's like their whole roster basically.
pretty much. And good on them too. If
I mean,
all
the strategies worked.
Yeah, if their games release and get at least an average of 10 each, they'll be up the top.
Yeah, they'll win, and that's what's one game getting counterpicked and not releasing the boot.
Yeah, and that's that's pretty good.
What might honestly destroy them in the end is actually just the Company of Heroes 3 counterpick.
Yeah, we can only hope. I need all the help
remember-
I can get.
I actually remember I was kind of trying to get Star Ocean the second story R, but Clumsy had the first draw and I wasn't really able to.
Yeah, well, and that ended up getting 14 points, so that was a decent pick.
It's a very good choice on his part for sure.
Absolutely. And there's some like the rest of their roster now there's games that could go either way, really.
Yeah, I mean, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus for him looks like a pretty good option.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the first one I think got around 80, got 79.
So. Yeah. So yeah, that's the fun part of the leaderboard. The rest of it, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, last 6 spots, probably out of contention at this time of year unless something freaky happens.
Yeah, Jeremy Drogson kind of just got screwed by Stalker too, honestly.
Yeah, totally, and yeah, there's good reasons why people like Nalb or Gemini Jobson or something are lagging behind now because of just unfortunate circumstances, really.
Yeah. I mean, if Hollow Knight Silksong came out in theory, they could jump up pretty far, but Hollow Knight
exactly.
Silksong,
that could change everything.
and they don't have the encounter picks either, I didn't realize.
Yeah. So those counter picks are going to add up to a -30 if they don't get them in. But as we record, there are some counter picks being bid on, so that could be Gemini taking care of that. Who knows?
Yeah, because I mean, who doesn't even have their counter picks right now? Mike doesn't. Gemini doesn't. Metal Redux doesn't. Those are the only ones.
Yeah, so I feel like Gemini might be the one bidding on them.
Yeah.
Because Metal Redux has dropped off.
Or somebody could be going for a bold play. When I think about it, because if you're at the top and you have a game that's just not gonna release and won't get you points, you could try to drop that counter pick and get a different one to try to get points.
True.
And try to squeeze out that last little bit.
Yeah, that sounds like way too much thinking for me.
Yeah, like Dragon could drop Angerfoot and counter pick a game and hope that game gets points.
Yeah.
And then that would potentially get them like the last 2 to jump over you.
Yeah, the pickings are slim though.
Yeah.
It is kind of last minute at the moment. Like we've only got like 3 weeks of releases left in the year.
Pretty much. There's really not much, but sometimes you gotta make do, I guess.
And I said right at the top, and I maintain it now, like this really is open to a lot of people. There's no way of telling who's going to win this year quite yet.
Pretty much.
Which I love.
I do too. Much more than last year, I would say. In the last 2 years. I've really liked how close it's been.
Well, I feel like especially 2021 when Alex won, he was like at the front from right at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that was really the only one who was even close that year, honestly.
Yeah, and he was just untouchable, which, good on him. He did well. But I think it's much more fun when everyone's kind of, a larger portion in contention like they are now.
I definitely think a big part of it is getting further from the pandemic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I think there was a lot of games you can see like back then didn't release, probably got delayed due to pandemic, only came back later.
This year the releases have felt way less volatile than they have in previous years, and I think that's a large part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. God, I forgot that Alex won while bidding on Hollow Knight Silk Song.
It can be done.
It is possible.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to see how it'll pan out because I actually have some skin in the game as well this time.
Yeah, I mean, right now you have the most skin in the game, actually.
And even though my default is to just expect not to win anyway, because I figure everyone's much smarter than me. But it's nice to be up there and have fun for a while. So we'll see how it goes.
I mean, you play it for 3 or 4 years, you're gonna pick up a thing or two at minimum, right?
Well, you never know. Never underestimate how stupid I can be.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'd like to. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention as well was one of the only reasons I'm up there is because of the new super drops. Because I was able to drop Payday 3,
Payday 3, yeah.
which was losing me points, and
Pretty
I replaced
much.
it with American Arcadia, which has come out and got 79, so 9 points.
I mean, exact same thing happened over here with me too.
Yeah.
Because I super dropped Redemption Reapers.
Oh, of
I
course.
believe I picked up Fate Samurai Remnant.
Nice. But yeah, I like it because obviously we've ended up with a much closer leaderboard. So I think that's kind of the intention as well of the super drops is to kind of make sure you're not completely out of contention and you do have a chance to kind of recover from a bad game.
Yeah, definitely. Cause I know I don't. Never mind. I was thinking one of the people near the top had the Metroid Prime remaster counterpick, but I think that was Jiminy Drodson.
Right, yeah. But yeah, I think I mean for my money, at the moment, as anyone would know listening to this, I've put up a survey asking people about what they think about rules for next year. But I think the counterpick is a good new feature. This is counterpick, the super drop rather, has been a good feature this year because I don't feel like anyone's been completely left out in the cold beyond their own kind of doing,
Yeah, and I think it also encourages at least a little bit more chance taking.
Yeah. And it's a good reason to kind of get back involved towards the end of the year as well, which I think can be a problem with a game like this where you can kind of set it and forget it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So getting people to be involved and engage throughout the year is probably the most difficult thing, but I feel like everyone, or the vast majority of people this year, have been on top of it and doing things. So
I'd agree with that. I think that's definitely another reason things have done so well this year. I think it's just like you look at 2021, there was a lot of people who weren't very active.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's felt way more volatile in the past, just for multiple reasons. But yeah,
that shit makes me realize poor Matt. He's the only one who had a whole bunch of games pop up, but they just didn't work out.
Yeah, and he had some good ideas too, I thought.
I still very much like the Peppa Pig bid, even if it didn't work out.
I think he got a bit shafted with that personally, but
It's a bit. I have heard from Peppa Pig fans it was maybe a bit disappointing.
Okay,
but I really liked the idea behind it.
Yeah,
I love seeing stuff like
and Forspoken unfortunately was a kick in the teeth as well for
yeah.
him.
Although I mean, that one I think at least could be seen coming.
Yeah, you always kind of maintained that was going to be pretty bad. So
Yeah. But I mean, I've definitely been wrong about other games this year, so I can't toot my own horn too much.
Yeah, well, and Matt had a good counterpick against my Payday 3, which I ended up dropping.
Yeah, it was really good. Got 6.4 for it.
Yeah, and any positive points on a counterpick is a really good thing.
I mean, that's around the most positive points for a counterpick this year, isn't it?
I think so.
It's like Exo Primo 2.5, Forspoken 3.4.
Yeah, there's some bad losses. Like, what did I just say?
Company of Heroes minus 7.8 looks like a big one.
Yeah,
all right, Bayonetta Origins was a minus 11.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
I was just happy I got a minus 4.7 and a 0.
yeah. Well, and I'm happy that at the moment, at least, I think neither of mine will be coming out, so that's just zeros across the board.
Yeah.
They're
I
not
mean, I'd
going to
definitely be
mess with
very
me.
surprised if Last of Us multiplayer game came out.
Yeah, but there's still that part of me that's like, I will not be surprised if Silk Song just happens to get released, especially at the
I
Game
mean,
Awards or something.
it's got to come out eventually, right?
Whoa, exactly. And, they've been quiet about it for long enough now that it's kind of like, oh, they must be getting close.
I mean, I won't lie. It would be a spicy time to drop it.
Hell yeah. Well, and think of the hype, like just, again, how good it would be for the game.
Exactly.
So, I mean, obviously, I hope it doesn't come out till next year, but we shall see.
It comes out December 31st, but there's no reviews until next year.
Yeah, I'll take that as a win if that happens. I'm not going to argue with it. But yeah, so yeah, the leaderboard has been a bit all over the show in a good way, I think. But to look at releases that have come out since last time we spoke, one of the cool things that I noticed as I was putting together a list of everything and what they scored was that nothing has lost points since our last time.
Yeah, the only thing that's technically lost any points was a counterpick.
Yeah, R2D2
And
counterpicking Lords of the Fallen.
frankly, a minus 3 on a counterpick is usually pretty good.
Yeah, and I think Lords of the Fallen was a pretty good counterpick in anyway.
I mean, I'd say it worked out in the end for him for sure.
Yeah, totally. And we've talked at length about how silly Lords of the Fallen might be, but
Yeah,
and
the
the
good old
naming convention.
Lords of the Fallen 2, Lords of the Fallen, Lord of the Fallen.
Yeah, the Fallen Lord. Yeah.
I also heard now they're coming under fire for some interesting post-launch decisions, let's just say.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm.
They're almost treating it like a live service game, but it's a completely single player game with no microtransactions.
Oh, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
We don't
And it's
like
not
that.
even interface, but the way they're they're post patching the game kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what I've seen of it, it looks interesting. I don't know if it looks amazing, but it doesn't look shit.
I feel like Lords of the Fallen is kind of come out in a case where the first game wasn't exciting and
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't really like it, but at the time there weren't a lot of other Souls style games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I can't remember if it happened last time we spoke or not, but I finished playing through the first one this year.
Yeah. No, I don't remember that.
Okay, well, I've actually finished it now, if I hadn't before. But it is a bit underwhelming. It's cool because it kind of is its own thing, but yeah, I remember when it came out getting excited about it because it was like the first straight up, no apologies, Souls clone.
Yeah, it did
And
not hide it whatsoever for sure.
no, and that's fine because,
Yeah, it
obviously
is.
there's
It
been
is.
more and more over time, so that's cool. But
I mean, especially when Dark Souls 1 came out, I'm sure people were happy just to have a straight clone kind of thing. Try to do something.
yeah, but it is a bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
Just nothing, like the maps feel large, but as soon as you kind of explore them, you realize how small they actually are.
Yeah.
The enemies are not really that interesting. They're just like guys with armor.
I heard that's very low enemy variety.
Yeah, it's a bit like I don't think they did anything wrong. I just don't think they did anything really all that exciting.
Yeah. And now the sequel comes out this year alone we had Lies of P, for example.
Oh, I loved that game so much.
Exactly. And it seems like I'd say Lies of P might be the second most successful Souls that isn't an actual Souls game that popped out.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I'd assume Neo probably was the most successful.
True, yeah. But I preferred Lies of P, to be honest.
I mean, I've kind of heard a lot of people say that, but I'm just thinking in terms of
Yeah.
success kind of thing.
Oh, totally. Well, and I think Neo, because I played a bit of it, but I just never got around to it and completing it, and I ended up retiring it because I was just not interested. But
Yeah,
it was different enough that it wasn't quite Souls. Kind
exactly.
of yeah, kind of in the way that Wo Long was this year. Like, I'm still
Wo Long's another example like that.
Yeah, I haven't retired Wo Long as yet, but I'm not rushing to finish it either. But it's obviously a Souls clone, but it's different enough to be kind of on its own thing. Whereas, as much as I loved it, Lies of P is like 100% a Souls clone. Like,
oh yeah, but I've heard it uses like the parts that it rips pretty well. Like,
oh, that's what I mean. I think it's a really good one, and I loved the game. Honestly, like it's up there for me for the whole year.
Yeah.
But there's no two ways about it. It is literally copying the Souls formula. It just does it very well, and it's got an awesome setting and awesome story, so that makes it more interesting.
And it has just enough little tweaks that doesn't feel like it's like super stale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can literally copy stuff if you make it interesting enough. And I think that's what they did, because like I cannot quite express just how much of a copy it is.
I mean, I actually watched a friend stream the game for a while.
Yeah, cool.
And that gives me at least a decent idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but yeah, the moment-to-moment gameplay is like straight up Souls, and that's cool. But yeah, as anyone would know, the setting is really cool. The characters are really cool. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I liked it. But
one thing I'd say with a lot of these releases near the end,
yeah,
is that since it's like the end of the year blitz, where people are kind of just trying to get their stuff before there's nothing to get.
Yeah,
you definitely see, aside from like October, where all the really big games popped up, kind of more obscure, surprising maybe games have to pop up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's true. There's definitely more that I haven't really heard of.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I'm looking at just recently, Clumsy Penguin had a game called Knuckle Sandwich out.
That was the one I was just looking at and thinking that.
But it got 79, so that's decent enough, to bolster that score.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even one I picked, American Arcadia, the only reason I picked that was because I played the demo during Steam Next Fest and thought, hey, this is really good quality. This is nice. When I drop Payday 3, this will probably be I thought it'll at least get in the 70s, so
yeah.
sure.
And 79 right there.
Cut my losses and that'll do. But yeah, it's 79, so I'm pretty happy with that.
I mean, sounds like a really good use of that demo playing kind of, thought process. You're like, ooh, this is nice.
Totally. Well, similarly, like you picked Jusant, which I played as well, and is a very good game. I actually thought it would score a little bit higher than it did, but it got 83.
Kind of figured it might get a bit capped on how hard to go, because it's a bit niche, I'm imagining.
Yeah, it's more just the pedigree, I think, coming from Don't Nod, who did Life is Strange and that kind of stuff. I feel like, yeah, it is definitely a bit niche gameplay, but, everyone knows who they are, and I felt like it would have got more eyes and stuff, although it probably did, but...
I mean, just for example, like Life is Strange True Colors only got 81.
Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed Jusant more than Life is Strange, or any of the Life is Stranges that I've played.
Right, and it reviewed slightly higher than most Life is Stranges, just from like a quick look, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I wouldn't have changed it heaps more. I maybe would have given it like an 85, 86, kind of a little bit of a bump.
Right.
But yeah, I think 83 is very realistic for that. But again,
That was one of those games I had to trade my way into getting a spot to get it too.
Yeah. Well, and I had it on my watch list as well to potentially bid on, but you picked it up before I got there, so.
Yeah, fortunate for me.
Yeah, I think I even might have bid on it, but you outbid me, so.
Yeah, that might be true, actually.
It seems to ring a bell.
I remember I looked how much you had and I bid $1 more.
Smart thinking, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, I can't let someone else get this one.
Yeah. Well, and for a game the reason that stands out for me anyway as a game for the league this year is more because there was like no hype about it really at the beginning of the year. I didn't even know it existed, to be fair. But it was only just before it kind of came out that I feel like it got any kind of traction.
Because like there was a reveal trailer for it in the middle of the year, But wasn't there? Didn't it turn like a showcase in like August or something?
I think it might have been part of like the Sony, whatever thing they do.
Possible. Yeah, that might be possible. The state of play or whatever.
That's the one. That's what I'm trying to think of. Yeah. I think
that might be it.
Don't quote me. I'm probably wrong, but I feel like something like that happened.
Yeah, I think something did because I think that might be what got it like my attention.
Well, and while we're looking at this list as well, like one of the games that I found disappointing myself, and I think is a disappointing score, was one of Nalb's picks, which was City Skylines 2.
Yeah, the technical issues just killed it.
Yeah, and I think everyone was expecting that to like come out and be like, you know, a big deal. But I feel like it kind of fizzed really quickly.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, the first City Skylines was really popular.
Yeah. And having played City Skylines 2, forget the technical difficulties, because yeah, that's shit. But the actual game itself, on the surface, and before anyone drags me over the coals, I know there's more to it, but on the surface, when you first start playing, it doesn't feel that different to the first game. Like,
right.
There are some differences, and there's little details and stuff, and there's probably other systems that I haven't got into yet, but it just felt a bit like, oh, this is like the first game, except kind of worse, because the first game now has a mod for everything you could ever want. So there's way more to it.
It's kind of an important way to think about it too, because most video game reviewers aren't going to be able to sit there for 3 months.
Yeah.
And kind of dig into it. They gotta.
Well, and the best review I heard about City Skylines 2 was that this game will be amazing in 2 years.
Yeah, No Man's Sky kind of thing.
And when there's, you know, they're supporting mods as always, because good on them, they do. But yeah, when there's a million mods to fix things or add things or, you know, tweak things.
Oh no, they've gone full Bethesda. Well, never go for the Bethesda.
Yeah, they're like, we'll let the players fix it for us. But I mean, how much did Starfield just disappear in the conversation?
I know, that was really surprising. Like, I guess not like super surprising, but still surprising, honestly.
I'm surprised just because of all the hype. Like, I'm not surprised it turned out how it did, but I'm surprised that there was so much hype, and then it came out and everyone was like, yeah, it's all right. And then we kind of forgot about it in a couple of weeks.
I mean, and this is how my mind kind of views it, and it's one reason I kind of stayed away from it. I don't think I had a chance to bid on it, but I was not going to bid on it if it came around to me. It kind of feels like a continuation of how Bethesda games have been viewed since Fallout 4 to me.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because, like, you know, Fallout 4 definitely still got good reviews. And it definitely still has fans. I'm not going to say it sucks or anything.
But
I feel like there was a lot like people who felt like it was just kind of worse Fallout 3.
Yeah.
And then like Fallout 76 came out. And yes, Fallout 76, you know, it had like 3 sister studios and it's like a cash grab side game or whatever. But I think it did kind of damage you know, faith in the brand, as it were.
Todd Howard still stood up there and said that it was amazing. So
exactly.
I don't care who made it.
Good old Todd Coward.
Exactly. And when you got Todd there with his little grin just telling you how successful Fallout 76 is, you're like, come on, man. We all know.
It's like, okay, sure, you patched the game to playability. Now it has some people who like it. We all saw what it was like for months. And the canvas bags and the website issues and the mod helmets and everything.
Well, again, I don't know if we spoke about it last time, but my favorite bit with Starfield was his quote about getting a better PC.
Right, because exactly, and people are struggling with that thing at like 370s and shit.
Yeah. Like, that just blows my mind because I'm like, dude, read the room.
I mean, you know, especially like right now where, you know, the pandemic made it hard to upgrade your computer.
Yeah, well, and the whole world is basically in a recession at the moment anyway, so.
Yeah, also true. Anyway. And like, I'd also say another thing I thought was interesting. This is something I saw a lot because just like from browsing the internet, is that Starfield ended up having some really bad timing because the Cyberpunk DLC came out.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
true.
Was really popular. And I saw a lot of people being like, I went from the Cyberpunk DLC to this, and it was just a completely lower level than the Cyberpunk DLC.
Yeah, and I think when the DLC came out for Cyberpunk, I saw that was when a lot of people jumped onto Cyberpunk for the first time.
Yeah, because it was like a really major update. They added and changed a lot.
Yeah, and they fixed a lot of stuff, and yeah.
And I think a very prevailing opinion, at least among like the more tuned in audience and not like the more general audience, was like, all right, Cyberpunk's release sucked. I'll buy it in 2 years when there's a complete edition, and they fixed it.
Pretty much, yeah.
And now that's basically what's happened.
Yeah, I forgot about that because I noticed that on looking at Twitch streamers and stuff that obviously everyone picked up Starfield on day one, but it was pretty much gone within a few days because everyone was onto Cyberpunk.
Yeah, honestly, it felt like it.
Or something like that, yeah. But yeah, crazy.
Another game I actually thought might get a bit higher, not that it's got a bad score, was SteamWorld Build. I thought that might get into the 80s, maybe.
Well, and there's still time for that because it only just came out. But
true.
Yeah, I was expecting it to do better than 77. I mean, I like it. So again, I played the demo. I loved it. I can't wait to play this game. But maybe I'm coloring my expectations a bit. But
with the demo too, you never know.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have seen some people just from like browsing the review. They're like, it starts off really nice and then it kind of overstays its welcome.
Yeah, that's kind of the worry as well. That I was thinking, like, yeah, the late game obviously is questionable and those sorts of things because you can never tell what it is off the bat.
Yeah, you gotta really dig your teeth into it beforehand.
Yeah.
I do want to say, just really quick, going back to Skylines 2 for just a moment. I do think while it had those issues, like you said, it really is the technical state that when you look at the reviews, just murdered the game fantasy critic-wise.
Yeah, totally.
And then they really did not respond to it very well either.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know what the response was because I haven't heard anything, but that could just be me.
I think I saw one that reminded me of the you remember the Xbox One was coming out?
Mm.
And they interviewed Pat Matrick or whatever his name was, Don Matrick.
Yeah.
And well, if you don't have an internet connection, you can always just buy a 360. And I think one of the devs is like, well, if it's a problem, you can play the first game. And that's always kind of a bad sign.
That's a great solution. Yeah. I mean, like any of those things, it is kind of like a thing these days, isn't it? Where I'm not surprised anymore when games release and don't perform well technically. I'm always disappointed, but yeah.
It's one of those things probably since pretty much the dawn of time for video games where, new hardware comes out and then games are going to want to push it and that will always run up against performance.
Well, and I think it's interesting these days because it's something I'd like to have a discussion on maybe more in depth another time in another place. But the difference now is that I feel like it always happened, but you couldn't patch it before, whereas now you can.
Definitely.
I remember games like, what was that one? There was a dragon game that was like a launch title for PS3.
Oh, not Scalebound. Lair?
Yeah, I think that's right. And it was like, it used the 6-axis motion controls and it was
that's Lair.
Yeah, and you flew dragons around and did stuff, but it's like, since it came out, it's universally been panned. It's absolutely terrible. And buggy and boring and unfinished and just shit. And
I mean, sorry, I didn't. Sorry.
No, you're right. It never got a chance to recover from that because it was just out on a disc. That's it. Deal with it.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, the history about that game because it's pretty funny.
Not in any detail.
Okay, I keep maybe send you a link later too. The developers had a choice of what system to develop for before they developed the game, and they did not choose the Wii because they didn't want to use motion controls. And then the PS3 introduced the 6-axis, and they're like, "Oh God, we're gonna have to use that, aren't we?"
But yeah, there are games like that, and there's other ones like I remember even earlier games on PC and stuff where you'd buy them and they'd be broken and crap games.
Yeah.
you're just stuck with it. There's nothing you can do. Like, you'd have to hopefully
I
read a
think
review beforehand and go, I'll avoid that. But
pretty
you
much, yeah.
could never patch it.
Yeah, the most you could do is you could do like a lot of games back then. It wasn't big, but they'd have a second revision that would go out on disc. But of course, if you purchase the first revision, your disc is still fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I think what's interesting about that, we don't have to dwell on this too much because, like you said, although if you do it on the other podcast, I wouldn't mind joining in. But
Well, I'll hold you to that.
but I think one thing that's interesting is that it simultaneously has become more patchable, but also it feels like it's become less acceptable in a way.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is that, like, if you make like a Nintendo 64 or PlayStation 1 game, let's say, you know it's going to be a bit rough because these are like the first 3D consoles, right?
Yeah.
And now when you get stuff that's like PS5 or like a 370 graphics card, you're like, well, shouldn't it at least run a little bit?
Well, and I think it's also that's what I mean. It is an interesting discussion that I think could go on for much longer. But I think the way with the internet now and everything, everyone's way more closer to the development process.
Also
Whereas,
very true, yeah.
Back in the day, you just have to read what you read in magazines, and that was pretty much it.
You just better hope your Nintendo Power isn't shilling too hard, kind of thing.
Basically, yeah, and you'd get shafted sometimes because they would be. But
Much.
even stuff down to like, I don't mind these days like a day one patch. Like, you get a game, you download it, and it immediately patches itself. Like, that's fine because obviously since packaging the final build to release day, there's some time. So if they know there is stuff to fix, they can fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay and that's cool. It's even desirable in a way because, yeah, why not? If you know something's wrong and you can fix it before release day, then go for it. But that thing of it being, I don't know if it's any more acceptable these days, but it's even more, you can have a direct line to the developers and you can complain on social media and all that kind of thing. So maybe it just feels like you've got more influence or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, no, I could believe that. There's definitely that. I just definitely think that, like, to an extent, like, when you go old enough, it was kind of the expectation, like, yeah, like, if you buy a game for this system, there's a risk.
I think as well, something that I've mentioned a few times before with whenever it comes up, because I think it is interesting, is I know myself, especially back in the day, playing games on PC, there wasn't the expectation that everything would work on your PC.
Right, because back then not all, but a lot of games were console based, and the architecture was a lot different, right?
Not even. It was more like, you've probably heard the meme, like, can it play Far Cry?
Yeah, true.
And that came from that exact thing where Far Cry came out, and basically the only people who could play it were people with top end PCs.
Right.
And
of course, the classic Crysis as well.
Crysis is more the example I'm trying to think of, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember actually talking to a friend who had a top of the range PC, and he was telling me all about Crysis and going, "Oh, it's really cool. You should check it out." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Yeah,
good luck."
I can't wait to play it in a few years when I get a new computer."
Right.
Whereas now I think there's, what do you mean my 10-year-old card won't support this new game that's got all AAA fanciness about it?
I mean, and I definitely see part of that. I do think part of that is because like computers kind of got to a baseline. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and
compared to like the Crysis days.
And I do think, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that you should expect it to run on your machine, but
Right.
I feel like there was more acceptance back in the day for things that wouldn't, I suppose. And maybe it was because there was a big disparity between top of the line stuff and the computer you had at home.
Yeah, I feel like there was a much bigger disparity back then. It feels like. I don't actually know because I'm not a computer expert. You know what else? I bet is one thing that's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Because I think nowadays it's much easier to like just go on Steam and see what the minimum requirements are.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, my computer meets the minimum requirements. Why don't it work?
Well, and that's something that, yeah, I will always hold against developers. Like, if I meet your minimum requirements, it better work. Like,
right.
If it doesn't,
you're
doing something wrong.
Will.
Yeah, like, for real. Like, if you need a 4080 graphics card to run your game, make that your minimum requirement. And sure, no one's going to buy it, but at least they know.
Exactly. I mean, I definitely think like just very quickly pivoting back to Starfield as an example.
Yeah,
Like that's one of the reasons that Howard comment rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
absolutely.
Because it's like you said mine would work. That's what the requirements say.
Well, precisely, and it's like, well, saying get a new computer doesn't really hold much water when you've said that it would work.
Exactly. And like I think with Cyberpunk too, like, that's also a big part of it. Because it's like, you released it on these last gen consoles.
Yeah.
So I would expect it to work.
Yep. But getting back to Fantasy Critic.
Yeah. With our little detour. Like one that both fits Fantasy Critic and what we were kind of just discussing too is like I also think how much the game's technical state happens like for how it affects the score is not only how bad the technical issues were, but also how much the rest of the game is so good that it might override it.
Yeah.
Because like the Marvelous Spider-Man 2 does have some notable bugs. I could be wrong about this, but that the rest of the game is really popular. So it's, you can kind of get through the bugs and it won't really necessarily destroy the playing experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there is that balance always going on. Like there are, I think every game has issues, especially big games.
Yeah.
Even your Breath of the Wilds or whatever, which are probably very well polished and everything, but I have heard of issues that exist in those games. But obviously,
you'll always be able to find something for sure.
Yeah, but it's down to obviously the rest of it is put together well enough that it makes it okay and you can put up with that.
Yeah, it's like a diagram of how serious the issue and how much the rest of it lets you put up with it.
Yeah. Whereas like recently I've been playing the new RoboCop game and really enjoying it. Like it's great, but it does have some weird technical decisions that I don't know how well it balances yet because I haven't got far enough into the game, but if it doesn't pick it up a bit more, it might kind of ruin it a bit for me.
That's unfortunate. I heard interesting things about that game. Like I've heard it's very wild.
The thing I like about it the most, and probably showing my age, is it ties in a lot with the movies. And
I've heard that too.
And yeah, it kind of scratches that nostalgia itch well.
Yeah. I actually remember I almost picked this game up on Fantasy Critic, and then I was like, no, this won't review too well.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's an interesting game, that's for sure. And I will talk about it more on the Helm Speak podcast one day, but it's a
RoboCop edition.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those games where it's like, am I? You have to ask yourself, am I enjoying it a lot because of it's RoboCop, or am I enjoying it a lot because it's a good game?
Well, one thing I've heard multiple reviewers say is that RoboCop game really makes you feel like RoboCop.
Yeah, it does.
So I think there's like a resonance there where that kind of feeds into it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. They've definitely succeeded in a lot of ways, in those sorts of ways. It's just the funkiness kind of. I've yet to see if it's excusable or ignorable or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wasn't anyway. Alan Wake 2 also a game that's had technical issues?
I don't know. I haven't heard much about Alan Wake 2. But
really, I mostly heard people. I remember seeing some people being like really surprised it wasn't nominated for Game of the Year. Honestly.
Well, and it scored well with 89, so it must have been well received.
Oh no, it was nominated for Game of the Year. I'm sorry. What was it that people were thinking? Why did that get nominated? I don't remember.
I looked at the quote unquote the Game Awards nominations and kind of just rolled my eyes and moved on.
I like to look at that because it's just like a fun little thing.
Yeah, it's basically, is Baldur's Gate going to win this category?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just not going to get into this too much, obviously, because not related, but I would say the Game of the Year selection is pretty freaking strong, though.
Yeah.
I was glad to see Super Mario Bros. Wonder get there, because sometimes it feels like film, so to speak, where only certain games get nominated.
Yeah, you know I know what you mean, yeah. There are games like Cocoon, which I think should have been up there. and not just in like the indie category.
Fair.
And
Honestly,
yeah,
Cocoon seems good, but I have wondered like back and forth on it from just watching it. But
yeah,
I haven't played it, so I can't say much either because it still seems very interesting.
yeah. I finished it the other day and absolutely loved it. It's a contender for Game of the Year for me.
I mean, that's a good choice. I really can't speak, unfortunately, too much about Game of the Year. I have not finished enough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got a handful that I've played, but Cocoon is definitely up there. So
Another one I think game that, if I recall, I expected to get higher was Total War Pharaoh. I thought might get higher.
yeah, I
I
mean,
think most Total War games get around like 78, 79 kind of thing.
yeah, this one got 76, which yeah, and yeah, that was an R2D2 pick, but yeah, I'm never know with Total War games. It really depends, I think, on their timing, especially like what they're competing with.
Yeah, and
Even though they
I've heard,
are their own thing, but yeah,
I've also just heard Creative Assembly maybe been kind of on the downswing with some of the Total War games recently.
yeah,
Can't really speak too much about that. Forza Motorsport also only got an 84, which I thought was interesting.
yeah, and I've heard interesting things about that. Yeah,
It kind of sounds like some of my worries about the game were on point, even if it still did good.
like 84 is good anyway, but
Of course.
I was definitely expecting the latest Forza Motorsports to closer to 90, really.
I mean, like Forza Horizon 5 got 92. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and similarly, like I know it's my game, but I was kind of disappointed with Assassin's Creed Mirage because it only got a
Yeah,
76.
yeah.
And
I've heard that game's kind of like if you like traditional Assassin's Creed, you're probably gonna
absolutely.
enjoy it. But
Well,
if
yeah,
you're
I mean,
looking for more that isn't that, you probably won't.
yeah, I mean, I've been playing it because obviously I like the series,
Right.
but it's definitely much smaller than the bloated Valhalla and Odyssey and Origins,
Right.
but there's still plenty there to do. Like,
I mean, honestly, I'm not somebody who's big into Assassin's Creed, but the somewhat smaller experience appealed to me.
well, and it does to me as well because it's basically there's way more killer, less filler, to use
Yeah,
that
that's kind of
phrase.
why I got.
And it's much more satisfying in a lot of key ways that I was kind of a bit missing from earlier games where the actual assassinations and finding targets and then, luring them out of wherever they are to actually assassinate them is like this whole process. And it's not just find them, kill them, run away.
Right.
And that's way more in line with the earlier games where you'd have to kind of work at it a bit and find your key moment to take them out. And there's way more emphasis on stealth.
So what you're saying is it's the Assassin's Creed game where you actually play as an assassin.
Pretty much, yeah. Cool.
Because
And
it seems like they got away from that in some of the recent games.
well, and they totally did, and that's kind of I like the Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla games; they're fine, but the big thing that I think they forgot in those games was, yeah, it felt like more of a third-person action game than an Assassin's Creed game,
I mean, like
and
I remember hearing one review from Valhalla. They're like, after a certain point, I couldn't stealth kill in this game because I didn't put points in the stupid talent tree into assassination. So
yeah,
I couldn't assassinate people in Assassin's Creed game.
yeah, and it's
And
ridiculous.
so, right. It
Whereas
almost feels like maybe they should have ended up being their own series. You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's what I mean. Those games are good still, and they're impressive. They're huge, and they're very detailed, and
The
not taking anything
locations are
away from them. Oh, the maps are fantastic, and there's even lots of cool added extras. Like they all have a certain uh, mythological kind of fantastical element to them,
yeah, true,
where
true.
where you fight like mythical beasts and things.
I've heard that's
And
like really prominent in Odyssey, right?
yeah, because there's lots of like Greek myths and stuff that you encounter, and
Yeah,
and that's a lot of fun and really cool. And I really enjoyed that part of the game. But it lost that kind of Assassin's Creed essence that
right.
especially I think long-term players would have noticed more than perhaps newer players.
I would agree with that, especially because I'm sure those games got newer players to kind of draw in.
Yeah, oh, totally. And that's all good and everything. So, but I looked it up, this is like the 15th Assassin's Creed game they've released,
My God.
which is a lot. I mean,
That is a lot.
even Final Fantasy is up to what, 16, 17?
Yeah. Well, ignore all the spin-offs, but
Yeah, mainline. I'm talking. Yeah.
yeah.
And so they're obviously, it's good on them for changing it up and trying to revitalize it, I think.
Get to like 15 for sure.
But yeah, overall, I was just a little bit disappointed that it didn't score a bit better because I feel like it deserved it for what they did do to it.
I mean, I just from watching it, I kind of agree. I would have expected it to be a bit higher.
Yeah, like maybe not hugely high, maybe just hitting 80 or something, but
yeah, like maybe high 70s, maybe an 80 kind of thing. I feel like this game might be almost like a test drive for a future Assassin's Creed game, honestly.
Yeah, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
It feels like maybe they'll do like a somewhat more expansive, yet still Assassin's Creed style game like this, where like they release it alongside, like not like literally alongside, but like a year or two later, whatever.
Yeah.
Like more of the Valhalla Odyssey style game.
Well, and one thing that is noticeable in this game that isn't necessarily a part of the other games is that there's no real gimmick in this game that stands out as in like, oh, that's the new thing they're doing in this game.
Yeah.
Like if you play through the series, there's always like, oh, now you've got the ability to sometimes, well, after the first few games, it was like, okay, now you can run actually through buildings and go inside buildings. Whereas before you were just always outside buildings or on top of them kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like later on it was like, oh, now you've got a grappling hook and that's the thing for this game. Or now you've got a gun in, the Assassin's Creed 3 and stuff when you're doing American Civil War.
Right.
And so, there was always that kind of, this is the gimmick for this game. Whereas this one feels more like you've got all the tools and everything that you had in your old games, but we're not pushing anything new. It's just, let's do this well and be done with it.
It kind of felt like, let's just kind of get back to what we were doing before and kind of just make kind of like not simple or basic, so to say, but let's just kind of get down this normal Assassin's Creed game, but like modernized a little bit.
Well, and in a nice way, I like that. I'm no Ubisoft shill or whatever, but I like the way that they kind of have listened a little bit to the discourse around Assassin's Creed, because after everyone really loved Origins when they changed it up and they're like, oh, this is amazing. It's so different. And they've improved the combat and all this kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. So they kept making that. Then everyone's like, oh, this is getting boring now. It's kind of grindy and shit. And we wish it was back like the old game. So now they've kind of taken it back to that.
I mean, I would definitely agree that it's nice to hear like an actual response to feedback.
Yeah, like I feel like they have kind of flowed with the overall opinion of where the series is heading quite well. So that's not something I could say for many games, but
yeah. I mean, I would definitely be very surprised if they didn't go back to the Valhalla style for at least one game. Probably many more games in the future over and over. But it would be nice if they kind of maybe even had like some like Valhalla was Ubisoft Montreal and all that stuff. Like they swap around a lot, but maybe just have like some additional studios do like some of the more original style Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah, well, and I think one way or the other, if they did it as like, well, here's what Assassin's Creed games are now, say, but hey, here's a spin-off which is a big actiony open world, crazy epic, or vice versa.
Right. I mean, at this point, admittedly, the actiony one probably would be considered the main one for them, I bet, unfortunately.
Yeah, possibly. But even then, I think it would keep people like me happy if they still made some more kind of quote-unquote traditional Assassin's Creed games.
I mean, I think there's a lot of room for both to exist, right?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. All that to say that I was a little bit disappointed on the score I got for that. So,
I mean, yeah, it's fine. Another game I actually thought the score was interesting, partially because I have to admit I have no idea what actually happened with this game. Is what happened with Counter-Strike 2?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think,
I think it ended up being like almost like a big patch.
Yeah, and my basic bitch take on it is that they it's not Counter-Strike 2. It's an update on Counter-Strike Go, just to kind of improve the graphics engine and add a few more mechanics or something and change it up a little bit.
It's almost like Overwatch 2.
Kind of, yeah. Like it feels that kind of same sort of iteration.
Right?
And I think also the fact that if you already own CSGO, it was just an update. So you didn't have to go buy Counter-Strike 2 or anything. I mean...
Right. I mean...
It's better than Overwatch in that way.
I know the Steam reviews for this game were massively negative.
Yeah. Well, and from the vibe I got was that it was just really disappointing because it didn't really do much.
Yeah. And I believe it also performed like badly technically.
Yeah, right.
I think it was kind of, funny enough, kind of just like we were just saying, there was a lot of technical issues. And then on top of that, there really wasn't enough to make you not pay attention to the technical issues.
Yeah, it obviously didn't have anything that really blew anyone's mind to balance it out.
Well, like it only got 7 reviews on OpenCritic, and 2 of them were unscored reviews.
Yeah, wow.
Like,
I mean,
that's kind of wild. It felt like,
and that's what I mean. Like, even the fact that it was just basically an update to CS:GO, and they changed the name and whatever, and it surprised me because even though I'm not a person who's very intimate with CS:GO or current competitive Counter-Strike, there are so many people who are, obviously, and
huge.
It's a huge deal to so many gamers.
It's like the second biggest esport
totally
right now, I would say.
So I think it's great that they did update it with just a patch. So as in they didn't try and sell you a new thing, so they just gave it to you. I mean, of all people, Valve can afford to give you an update on their game.
I forget, did it replace the original though?
Yeah.
That's something I'm definitely not a big fan of, admittedly.
I know. Like in my library, one day I had CSGO installed because I like playing it every now and then. I like playing gun game every now and then. But and then it just had an update and suddenly I had CS2 and I'm like, oh, all right.
Right, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It just gives me big Warcraft 3 Reforged energy.
But I think in some ways, I think if they did release it as a separate title, it might have been received better.
Maybe?
Question mark?
or at least maybe just make it like I don't know, like not a mode maybe, but like
yeah.
If it's gonna be an update, maybe not like a pure replacement.
Even
like I know one thing I heard is you could play CS:GO on your Mac, but this game, at least on launch, didn't have Mac support.
Ah, well that would, yeah, if I was in that spot, that would piss me off big time.
Yeah. So it's like almost getting your game removed at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, I think it still surprises me that people don't support Mac or Linux when they release a game. I know it's difficult to support every single system out there, and PC is hard for that anyway, and that's why consoles are easier and blah, blah, blah. But if you're going to make a PC game, I mean...
I feel like Linux doesn't surprise me because it's ultimately such a small part of the market, but Mac does surprise me.
But Mac especially, I'm like, come on, guys.
The only thing I can think of is just that maybe it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I honestly do not know, so I might be just talking like an idiot, but
yeah,
it does surprise me. But you know, but then again, you know, there are things like I hear people say, "Oh, why didn't they include multiplayer?" But I do know that that's very difficult to implement. So
yeah, definitely.
Well, like, why isn't this cross-platform? And I'm like, again, have heard about how difficult that is to implement. So, you know,
why doesn't this modern open world game get smushed into my Switch cartridge?
Yeah, why won't it run on my system? God damn it!
It's like we were saying, why won't this game run on my 8070?
Yeah, I want to play Cyberpunk on my phone.
Cyberphone.
Yeah. The weird thing is you probably could, but anyway, that's...
you just need to get a really, really, really powerful phone.
Yeah. But one game that I'm glad I did pick up, which was out of my comfort zone, was Super Mario RPG Remake.
Oh, yeah, that was a great pickup.
Because obviously I'm not too familiar with Nintendo. I just saw it was coming and went, hang on. I looked up Super Mario RPG, saw that it was popular back in the day and thought, hey, a remake of that's got to score well. And sure enough, it got 84, which I was very happy about.
Pretty much. I mean, I would say really the only question mark with that game was if it was going to go even higher. I'm not surprised it didn't go even higher, but
Well, and that's what I was hoping for, because this was a very much Mario equals points kind of bid for me.
I mean, old Mario game, good points. There you go.
Yeah. So I was very pleased with that one, as opposed to being a bit disappointed with Assassin's Creed. But,
Yeah,
swings and roundabouts.
I've heard the Super Mario RPG remake is actually pretty good too. Like
Yeah.
it was pretty well put together.
Well,
And
apparently it's about an 84 good.
about 84. It was good to hear they added like a pretty good amount of content, honestly.
Oh, cool. That's what I know zero about this game though as well. Like all I know is I picked it and it scored me well.
It's I feel like Super Mario RPG, the best way to compare it is like the Paper Mario RPGs and like the Mario and Luigi RPGs are like built from the ground up RPGs for Mario and stuff.
Yeah.
And Super Mario RPG is more like, what if a Square Enix RPG from like the SNES era had Mario?
Oh, okay.
That's the easiest way I think I would put it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good, yeah.
So it's got like a different vibe than like a lot of the Mario RPGs, I'd say.
Well, I'm glad that people liked it though, because that was one game that I literally knew nothing about but picked because Mario. So
I mean, I suspect that if you just picked Mario games all the time in Fantasy Critic, you'd probably get a pretty good average.
Well, and that's what I was banking on. Like, yeah, I honestly think if you did do that, you'd average pretty high. So
Pretty much. I mean, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is like one of the highest scoring games all year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, gave Dragon 22 points at
exactly
the moment. So
pretty crazy that Spider-Man 2 and Mario Bros. Wonder came out the same day and have almost the exact same score.
Yeah. There's only like point something differing them.
Yeah, like absolute decimals of difference.
Yeah. So yeah.
But unfortunately for me, Sonic Superstars did not end up being quite that level, but
See, I think again, I say Sonic and I think, ooh, gamble.
Pretty much. I mean, it was a gamble, but I think at the time I bet on it, there weren't really many games I saw with like home run. I was supposed to be able to get around a 77 kind of thing.
Well, and it's always interesting because like I feel kind of lucky anyway, because bidding on Talos Principle 2, wasn't sure if it was going to come out this year.
Yeah, that was the worry with that.
And it got me an 89, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then more recently, American Arcadia again could have tanked for all I knew, because it was just some little indie game that I thought the demo was cool. So I feel like I got lucky there as well. It wasn't necessarily a smart choice; it was more just lucky.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was purely luck. I'd also say there's a bit of a calculated risk, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I did play the demo and think this is decent, so there is that.
Like, because you had super dropped the one game to be able to get in the first place.
Yeah.
And if that happens, you kind of get like you have to do something to potentially win where you were.
Yeah.
And
so
there weren't that many options left, although there were a few. But like,
I guess I think of it as lucky because it could have very easily just gone the other way, kind of like with Talos Principle 2. I wouldn't have been surprised if they pushed it till next year. So
I mean, also it could have been Storyteller kind of thing.
Well, exactly. And I think having Storyteller in my roster as well, I was like, it could just be another one of them.
Yeah. But you're like, well, no risk, no reward, baby.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time I'm like, oh well, let's see what happens.
I mean, sometimes that's how you gotta play it, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I would drive myself spare if I really, really thought about everything that much.
Yeah, I mean,
as much as I'm trying to be a bit smarter, I have my limits.
it definitely helps. This isn't like fantasy football where you have to make week-to-week decisions.
Yeah, that would stress me out too much.
Yeah, but
yeah,
the one thing I did want to come back to real quick.
Mm-hmm.
This could be quick because it is only tangentially related, but it's kind of coming back to an earlier discussion.
That's right.
Is we were talking about technical difficulties and how that affects reviews and all that. I think the thing that may have affected Starfield when it comes to technical part of some of the reviews or player reception is that there's a lot of bugs that have just been in there since like Skyrim, and they're the same bugs.
Yeah.
And after a while, people just kind of get sick of it. Like, you haven't figured this out already?
Well, and it's recognizably the same engine.
It is. They've said as much.
Well, but it is the same engine, but it's recognizably the same engine.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I get what you mean. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
it doesn't fool you.
You feel like you're in Skyrim again. Like, you walk into a room and someone talks to you, and you get that kind of camera zoom to them looking at you funny because they've just turned their head towards you.
But now with loading screens.
And yeah, it's still got that same feel as Skyrim or Fallout or whatever, but
yeah,
it doesn't feel next gen, I guess, is what I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like I was saying with like the Cyberpunk DLC. That's kind of what it felt like a lot of people were kind of saying.
Well, and just I think one of the big things I heard about Starfield was how underwhelming it was. Like, yeah, you can explore places and planets and everything, but there's really no point to it, and it's just kind of a big waste of time.
Hey, but you can't be bored when it's empty, just like the astronauts weren't bored when they went on the moon.
Sure, but just get a new computer, forehead.
I asked our audience, what would you ask Todd? Big question from many. Why did you not optimize this game for PC?
We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome.
So yeah, I think that's I'm not too surprised after the fact that Starfield didn't wow us all as much as it was going to.
You know, I don't know how much more games we'll talk about, but one more I want to point out from Clumsy Penguin. Risk of Rain returns. I have a few friends who've been really big into Risk of Rain.
What did they think of this one? Do you know?
I've heard like my one friend thinks this is like the best one.
Well, that's good.
They already got really into Risk of Rain 2, and they're like, this just improved on the first game in every way, and you know, the gameplay is much more tuned up. There's more lore and story, all that kind of stuff. Just like it's basically just flat out better in every way.
Yeah, awesome.
And Clumsy made a really good picking it up. I would say, like an 85 from a game that I think a lot of people in Fantasy Critic probably just ignored.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of had my eye on it because I haven't played the first game yet. I want to after having played the second game, which I have played.
Well, I've heard this game, if you want to go back to the first, can basically just replace it.
Yeah, right. Okay. But well, I already have the first one, so I'm imagining I'll try that first. But
if you ever want to do co-op, I actually have the game on Steam as well.
Nice.
Could be fun sometime.
Yeah, let's do it. But when I did see this was releasing, knowing how well received the other games are, I think they're one of those games where it is kind of niche in a way as it's not like super mainstream popular. But I feel like the people who do play it really dig it and really play it.
I'd agree with that.
And like I've played co-op with some other people from Hell and Speed as well on Risk of Rain 2. And yeah, you can see totally getting into it way more than I ever did. But it's a really fun game, basically. So, and really well put together. And I'm not surprised actually that the new one did as well as it did with 85.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to really know their stuff at this point. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's one of those games where it is like on the more niche side, but it's not so niche that you won't get reviews or whatever.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know of Risk of Rain in some form or another.
Right, exactly. I feel like Risk of Rain 2 especially, like when you're in at least more of the gamer kind of sphere, as it were.
Yeah, when you're an enthusiast.
Yes. a true connoisseur.
Quote unquote gamer.
Gamer moment.
Excuse me, I must kill myself.
We're gaming too hard.
Yeah, it's too much game for me.
But yeah, I mean, like Risk of Rain Returns ended up being one of the best releases of the entire month, score-wise. And Clumsy just kind of swooped in and grabbed it right there.
Well, and that's what I mean. Clumsy's picked up some good titles along the way. Like some I haven't really heard of, but others, like even Like a Dragon Gaiden, didn't score as highly as I thought it would. But that's a game that's like, wow, that's a good pickup. You know.
Did he pick it up? That wasn't drafted. That was drafted.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad then. I forget.
Yeah. It was his like second round draft pick.
Okay.
No, third round. Sorry.
Should look at his thing.
But Clumsy picked up like 5 games in this month, and only really The Last Faith kind of dropped. Honestly.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like 7 games. Honestly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's still 3 more for Clumsy to come, so that could put them right up the top of the board.
Yeah.
If they do well.
They've had like an 84.4 and an 84.8 this month alone. And either one of those could pop them up pretty good.
Well, and that's where again, like we mentioned this prior to recording when we were just chatting, but looking at rosters that have done well this year, again, once again, there's like an overwhelming, I think, theme of scores that are just consistently solid. Not necessarily huge scorers all across the board or whatever, but, you know, good solid ranges around 80s and high 70s.
A bit interesting in that regard.
Well, and that's where I was thinking, like, if he's got, obviously, like, Tears of the Kingdom, which is a huge 96.
That's about half his score right now, almost.
Yeah, but if the rest of his get about an 80, then he's gonna have a pretty good average around there.
Exactly.
For the whole year. And he will be near the top as a result.
I mean, if he gets 3 games of exactly 80, he would win.
Yeah. And that's where I think...
That might be the key for sure.
Yeah, like Tears of the Kingdom scored so well that it's kind of covered him for Sam & Max, which isn't coming out, so that's got a 0.
And Company of Heroes 3.
And the Company of Heroes thing, yeah. So if you do have some losses like that, then yeah, having a big 90s game is good to counteract it. But
Right.
But then I look at like my own roster, and I've only got like mostly low 80s, high 70s.
Yeah, really, it's just like Talos Principle 2 with the high 80.
I haven't got anything that's pushed 90. So
no, you haven't. it's and the key thing, like you said, is that outside of Storyteller, you've like got a minimum of 76.
Yeah, which is again like consistently average enough.
Right, exactly.
And I think we've seen in previous years, like that's if you look at most of the winners' rosters, they've usually had a full roster of games that have released, and they have been, you know, like consistently average, like high 70s, low 80s.
Yeah,
and
get maybe like 1 or 2 of the big ones.
Yeah, and I think that's something definitely for everyone, new and old players, to remember moving forward. Like when you are making your picks, it's always nice to gamble on the high scorers and stuff, but if there's something you think is going to get a good solid 80, like that can really be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, if you drafted 10 games that got 80 points, that'd be 100 points.
Yeah, you're there. Like,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
And obviously you're not going to have that necessary level of consistency, but when you think about the averages and stuff, just kind of, it's a good spot to aim at.
Well, and you can look at other players as well who like have high stuff in their rosters but haven't necessarily made it up the top. Like Caffrell's got 94 for Metro Prime Remastered.
Yeah.
Along with an 89 for Dead Space Remake. You know, they're both
Caffrell was kind of like the opposite of a lot of it, where you had like a bunch of explosive games early.
Yeah, they've got much higher variance. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened for him is, unfortunately, he just had a whole bunch of stuff not released.
Yeah, and get counterpicked, so...
Yeah, I couldn't drop. I mean, I feel like pretty much everybody kind of figured some of those won't release kind of thing.
Yeah.
Especially, I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Oh, I was about to say is I wondered if Caffrell had a super drop, but nah.
Well, I think they would have used it because they have been active, so...
Well, what's unfortunate for them is that they don't have any money.
Well, that's true.
I mean, they could super drop Tales of Symphonia Remastered and get 4.4 either way, admittedly.
Yeah, they could recover some losses.
Unfortunately for them, they just don't quite have it. One of the downsides of getting a really big lead early, you might not ever get a counter or counter drop.
And, you know,
super dropped.
Yeah. And obviously there's no surefire way, like none of this kind of necessarily is set in stone, but
Nah,
it's just
not.
interesting, I think, that most of the winners tend to have fairly average kind of rosters.
Pretty much. Probably Dragon is like one of the other ones that isn't quite that kind of average. Obviously, still has some of that.
Yeah, but
Like
he's
you
got a
could see
couple
like
of
a
losses in there as well.
-2, a 3.3, a 4.9 kind of thing.
But then like a 91 and yeah.
Yeah. But like you look like R2D2, you get the 80s across the board. You got more 80s across the board. Alex, very similar situation.
Yeah. Yeah, just something to think about, really.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time, it is nice to gamble on something like that'll either be massive hit or miss.
I mean, sometimes you gamble on something that's a big hit or a big miss, and you end up right in the average.
Totally.
So, do we have any other releases from this month we want to talk about?
Not really for me. I feel like the rest are just kind of either pretty much did what they expected to do. Like Ghost Runner 2 for you got an 80. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I have much anything I want to talk about either. I was happy that my maybe a bit offbeat pick of Fate Samurai Remnant worked out the way I thought it would.
Totally,
nice.
yeah.
But that's really all I have to say about it.
Yeah. The only other one is like an obvious Null had WarioWare Move It, which got a 74, which I thought was, again, a little bit low just because it's a Mario game, basically. So
I mean, that doesn't really surprise me. WarioWare games usually don't review that high.
Okay.
Like WarioWare Get Together was a 76, WarioWare Gold was a 77. So like it's a bit under, but not too
but it's
far
not,
under.
Yeah, it's not a weird anomaly or anything.
It's not like if like Mario had a main series that got like a 70 or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it's been, I mean, overall since last time we spoke, it's been a strong release schedule, really. Like we say, nothing got under 70.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
a
cool.
lot of games, like half or more of them got like 80 or more, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely at least half, I'd say.
I mean, like we said this last time that October was going to be a huge month.
Yeah.
And it really looks like it's lived up to the expectations.
Totally. And, you know, congrats to everyone for doing that because it just shows everyone's picking good games. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, it also just shows that people were even like staying active all year too. That we still had all this action going on all the way into November, October, December.
Well, and like we said at the top, I think it shows as well with how, you know, how close the leaderboard has been.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
But with that in mind, and with the idea that we're kind of done with the game section, do we have any final predictions on the leaderboard?
Well, I mean, I feel like for me, I'm in first place at the moment, but I could easily get toppled by if Clumsy has some good releases to bring them straight up. And I feel like if Alex manages to sort out Sons of the Forest, maybe, but I don't see that happening.
well, like I said, he probably will get Sonic Superstars.
Yeah.
Or Sons of the Forest.
Yeah, so, you know, Alex, I think, is still in a contender.
It might honestly come down to, like, the very end, where, like, a small point adjustment might win it.
Yeah. I do think it's impossible to have a solid prediction at this stage, which is amazing, but great.
I would agree with that. Like, okay, I just did a quick calculation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I traded Sonic Superstars to Alex, like I'm pretty sure will happen. He should end up with 101.95, and you have 101.98.
But that's how close it's going to be, I swear. Like,
that's what it is.
And also, I'd be asking, what's in it for you with that trade?
I'm going to drop Sons of the Forest and pick up another game.
I see. Okay.
because he doesn't have any ability to gain anything. Because I'm assuming what's going to happen is that Dragon Quest Monsters is going to get like 77 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end up with like 96, 95, but I won't have any actual chance to win.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm trading Alex something where I'm going to have to now beat him slightly higher But
you've got
if
more
I
of a
pick up a
chance.
game and it gets like an 80, I'll win.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
it gives me a theoretical way to win, even if it also gives me a slightly higher hill to climb.
Well, and that's precisely why I don't really have a prediction. Like, I predicted it'll be close, put it that way, and we won't know till basically the last week.
We really won't, especially because like Clumsy Penguin, his third game doesn't come out until December 15th, and his second one doesn't come out on December 14th.
Well, even just down to this last week has been a good experience for me, at least, because literally on almost a daily basis, Dragon and I have been swapping places because there's been some reviews that have obviously still been coming out and tweaking those scores just ever so slightly. And it's been enough to move us around. So even that on its own could move people around.
I mean, exactly. That's kind of what I was saying with like the Alex trade, where it'd be like 0.03 behind. One review comes out, changes the score.
Yeah, like someone decides I don't like that game anymore. And there you go.
Or somebody really likes the game and it boosts someone up slightly.
Exactly. So,
I would say if like I had to choose a prediction, it'd be either you, Alex, or me. Because you're ahead right now where if nothing changes and like no new reviews start coming in because your games start getting further and further from the release window, that you would win. Alex is going to be in a position where he's almost tied. And then I'll be in a position where I basically need a game to get probably 7 or more to win, and otherwise I lose.
Which, pickings are slim at this time of year.
Yeah, they are. I do have one I'm looking at. I'll tell you that.
Nice.
I was originally considering trying to say screw it and get the Avatar game, but the bidding wouldn't work out. Plus, I really just don't feel that game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a fan of the movies anyway. So.
They look nice, I guess.
Amazing graphics, sure.
Man, they really are just like the Starfield of...
Pretty much. Well, I think I when I saw the latest Avatar movie, that was kind of my summary was, wow, amazing graphics and animations, and like, wow, the people who made that are just very talented and wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds
the rest
about right.
Of it, just a 0 all round.
It's like a 5-part series they're planning now too.
I know, it's weird, hey, but I guess that's what people do now is they plan movies 20 years ahead.
It's just like a live service game.
We love that.
Anthem will be a 10-year experience. Just like Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have a game in mind that I was looking at. Actually, it was a game I did not know about until I started looking to what was available.
Nice.
And I was like, hey, this actually looks kind of good.
Cool.
So my hope is that will pull me through right at the end.
Well, and it just might. It's like the Mario RPG for me. Like, I didn't know that existed until I was looking, going, I need another game.
And then you're like,
Mario. I'm like, I think that might do all right.
Right?
But I think you're right, though. I think, you guys, like, I'm in first at the moment, but it's there to be overtaken kind of thing.
Pretty much. I definitely give Clumsy the outside shot, where Clumsy, because they have so many games available, all it really takes is one of those games going off.
Totally. Whereas, the others, like, I don't see Metroid Prime 4 coming out for Cafferel.
Yeah.
For
Leo, all that stuff, just... It's going to be wire to wire, but...
Yeah, I can imagine it'll be right down to the end. We won't know what's happening until basically New Year's.
Pretty much. And then it'll be ready for the next year.
And it'll be draft time. So why don't we speak about that a little bit?
Sounds good.
So by the time anyone is hearing this, the signups will be open for 2024. If you are a returning player, you should know how this works. But we'll let you know anyway. If you're a new player, have a listen and,
take a
always...
look. It's in the book.
First thing I'll say, if you are a new player, always feel free to ask questions. I know it can be quite confusing. It can seem like there's a lot going on and a lot to get your head around, but it really is quite a simple kind of few steps that you just have to keep in mind.
I mean, there's no shame asking, you know.
Totally.
We all need a game facts in our lives sometimes.
Well, exactly. And I'd rather have new people coming in feeling like they know what they're doing than not joining because it's too confusing. So
I agree 100%.
So yeah, please by all means ask questions. But the first thing we need to think about is signups, which essentially will be open as if you're hearing this, it's open now. There'll be a invite link for new players that I would have shared on the Discord and on the forum. If you're a new player, follow that link. You'll have to have created a Fantasy Critic League account, which is free, and sign in with that account, follow the link, and you'll be able to join our league for next year.
And I can tell you from experience, it's really easy to do it.
Yeah. And the only thing then, other than that you have to think of, which is the same thing for returning players, is that you have to create your publisher. And essentially that's your team. So during sign-up time, to basically show that you are signed up and ready to play, you need to create your publisher. And you can call it whatever you want. Everyone always comes up with some nice puns, and I really enjoy seeing new publishers come in. But that's the key thing you have to do before the end of December. Because essentially anyone who hasn't created a publisher at the end of December, so when January 1st rolls around, you're going to get kicked and you won't be able to be part of the league because we can't start the draft until everyone has created a publisher. And we want to start the draft as soon as possible.
Yep, we sure do.
Speaking of the draft, especially for new players, but, you know, returning players always can have a good reminder. Remember, we are How Long to Beat community, and that means we are all around the world, and we are in all time zones you can think of. So, unfortunately...
And even some you can't think of, honestly.
Yeah, ones you probably never even realized existed. But important thing with the draft is, yes, time zones, and so it does take longer than perhaps intended, because the way the site wants it to work is that you all sit down together and you pick games all then and there, and it should take you about, you know, half an hour, maybe an hour tops, and then you're done. Whereas we have our own little custom rules for our draft, which is once it starts on the 1st of January, everyone will have a randomized position in the draft order. So you may be first, you may be second, third, fourth, whatever. We don't know. I'm going to spin a wheel to basically figure out where you sit. And then it goes in a snake draft order. So it goes from first to last, and then from last to first, and so on and so forth.
Yep, until 5 games, at least with current rules, have been drafted.
Yes. And so the idea is, though, that everyone will need to make your picks when it is your turn. And the hard thing for us, being in different time zones, is determining when it is your turn. So often we encourage people to take part in the Discord and stuff so that we can at you when it is your turn as a gentle reminder, not as to be demanding or anything, but just to help notify you. But at the same time, keep an eye on the draft and how it's going. Ask people in the Discord or on the forum if you need to know anything. And just, that's like the biggest commitment of all.
Yeah. And then after 2 days, if they don't make a pick, is when they get kind of auto-picked, right?
Yeah, so the rules that we've come up with to kind of keep it reasonable is everyone gets 24 hours to make their pick.
24 hours, that's what it is.
Yeah, so that means basically that, you know, I might make a pick and then Froy's after me. So once I make my pick, essentially the clock, quote unquote, starts starts ticking.
Tick, tick, tick.
And so Froy then has 24 hours to make their pick. So that basically means if I make a pick and the next person is asleep, it gives them time to wake up and go about their day and check the thing and go, oh, it's my pick. I'll make a choice. Or if they have to work or if they have other commitments like family or anything else, that basically you've got a day's window within which to check if it's your turn or not. And you should be able to make a choice.
Pretty much, but not longer than that.
Yeah, when you think about having like 14 plus players and it's a day for every single choice and everyone's making 5 choices, it can end up taking a while. And so the other thing that we always ask for people to remember is to have a bit of patience and allow people that 24 hours because, yeah, we all want to get on and pick everything right now and yesterday, but to help being inclusive for everybody, we give them 24 hours just to kind of, you know, allow for life to kind of get in the way and for time zones and that sort of thing.
Because we've all been there.
Yeah. But there is an alternative. It is the auto draft. So if you're really nervous about all this, or you know you're going to be super busy, but you still want to take part and you still want to, be a part of the draft, but you are worried that you might take longer than 24 hours per pick, then you can set up an auto draft, which is a function on the site. And if you want someone to help walk you through it, by all means, ask someone or check out some videos or check out the FAQ on the website, that sort of thing. But basically, you can pre-pick a list of games that you want to select. And when it comes to your turn, the website will just automatically pick the next preferred game that you want that's available.
Yeah. And in addition, if you don't have any games left, or maybe you didn't even have time to set your watch list, it will just pick the game that they think will get the most points.
Yeah. So all the games on the Fantasy Critic League site are ranked in order of basically a hype order. Which ones are most hyped and most predicted to do well kind of thing. So, things like Breath of the Wild and stuff were right at the top of the hype order. So if you don't make any selections, but you turn on an auto draft, the site will just pick the next most hyped game, which is kind of a semi-sure way of getting a good pick. Similarly, if you do miss the 24-hour window in our own league, usually I'm a little bit flexible, and it depends when I'm awake as well to meet that time frame. But around the 24-hour mark is when I will then go and pick for you, and I will do the same thing. I will pick the next most hyped game that's available. So the downside is you don't get a choice, but the upside is if you do happen to miss one for unforeseen circumstances, then fair enough, you'll still
You don't just get or anything else.
Yeah, you don't get booted. You get a pick. And the last thought on that I'd like to say is that also communicate. Like every year someone will say to me, "Oh, I'm actually busy. I won't be able to make a pick quite yet." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool. That's fine. Thanks for telling me." And we know to wait a little bit longer. So, if there are circumstances that change what you're available to do, then just tell us, communicate, tell us about it. And I'm sure everyone will be understanding.
We're not going to get on your case just because, you're out for a day or whatever.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we want everyone to be able to take part and to have fun. So, yeah, the worst thing you can do is just be completely silent and absent and never show up. Because then
it just kind of goes.
Yeah, if you ghost it, then you probably will get kicked. Because if I have to pick for you like 2 or 3 times in a row, I'm not going to enjoy it, and I'll probably remove you from the 2024 league. So you've got plenty of opportunity to avoid that, but that is kind of worst case scenario. And we've never had to do that. So, I think most people... I don't
think we've ever even come close, have we?
No, there's been... I think the most I've had to pick for anyone would be twice, but then I didn't have to pick for them again because they just, obviously they had other things going on that they forgot about the draft and eventually came back to it. So
yeah, that's right.
And we get that life is life and this is not the most important thing. So it's all good.
All right.
So that's the main things to remember, and always keep an eye on Discord and the forum, because I will very, exhaustedly update everyone on everything as it happens. So I might annoy you a bit actually by posting too much, but I try to make sure that there's no way that anyone can miss the key dates and the key requirements. So
wow, you might even make a podcast discussing it.
Exactly. I mean, this is what we're doing basically. So the other thing I wanted to mention as well, which is less important and mostly for returning players, is that by now, if you're listening to this, you would have seen that I put up a survey about rules for 2024, and we've always kind of half discussed it on the Discord, but I wanted to make it more official and kind of get people's actual feedback, because we do kind of change things and tweak them every year to, see what happens. And I have received some responses already, but before this comes out, I'll receive some more, hopefully. So there may be a few little changes to rules for 2024, but again, I will be very transparent about what those are and let everyone know ahead of time. But yeah, the main thing right this second, if you are listening this far and you've lasted this long, is whether you're returning or new, sign up, follow the invite link, or log in with your old account. Go to the 2024 page. There's an option to choose it at the top right of the 2023 page, and make your publisher. That's one thing to do.
That's right. Do it right now. Don't delay. Just minimize the YouTube, open up the page, click the sign up button. You can listen to the final thoughts while you think about that sick publisher name, your best pun.
Yeah, exactly. That is the one thing you need to do before December. Plus, obviously, start planning what games you'd like to pick in the draft. But, that's up to you. Some people like to roll the dice and just go with whatever. Others like to really meticulously plan it, and they're usually the ones who win. But
and then sometimes you can just open up random.org, see how many games are on the list.
Yeah.
Bam.
And
there you go.
So, yeah, hopefully that kind of gives everyone a bit of an idea about what to expect in the next, coming month or so.
I think so.
By all means, there are no stupid questions. Always ask. We've got a great community at HLTB, and I think everyone would be happy to help each other out. So,
I'd agree with that.
Go for it. And have fun, because it is fun. I really enjoy it.
That's right. You are required to have fun legally.
Exactly. If you're not having fun, you're going to get marked down. But yeah, Froy, what are your final thoughts on this 2023 season?
All right, I think I'd say, I'm going to bet you'd agree with this, best year we've had so far, right?
Absolutely.
It's really close. Everybody's been really active.
Mm-hmm.
Trading has added a slightly new dimension. Super drops.
Yeah.
Added more stuff. Kind of kept people invested. We're getting people like Clumsy Penguin even at the end, making really big moves.
Yeah.
Well over half the publishers are going to have their entire roster filled.
Yep. I pretty much agree entirely with all of that.
I definitely think another thing is that 2023, obviously there's been this and that about maybe the more employee side of gaming, whatever. Yeah. But in terms of the actual games release, this has been one of the better years.
I think it's been great, personally.
Exactly. So. And I think that really also uplifted the Critic League as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like you say, I really like to give a shout out to Fantasy Critic themselves and Steve Fallon, who runs the site and basically runs the whole thing, very much like an Everdread of Hell on Speed. Fantasy Critic is run by one person, so, credit to them.
I mean, I'd say they're doing a good job.
Well, and I was just going to say, the new features like the trades and super drops, I think, have really done what they were intended to do, which is to keep it more competitive throughout the whole year and prevent any one person running away with it, or vice versa, one person just totally tanking and being out of contention.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I really like that. And I think it's just only going to get better, really. And the more people we have and the more active players we have, the better.
I mean, if we get even more active people, there's going to be a lot of jostling spots. I mean, I think it'll be interesting how next year goes to an extent, because I feel like this year had a lot of sequels that were really anticipated, and also just a lot of games that were really expected in general. Next year feels like it's a lot more open in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like we definitely started 2023 with some big names in our head. on our watch list, they were stacked at the top with, okay, if I can get one of these in the draft, that'd be great, because everyone else is going to pick the rest.
Exactly. Because I mean, Tears of the Kingdom, Final Fantasy 16, Resident Evil 4 remake,
Street Fighter 6,
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
It felt like there was a lot of options in the first round this year.
Totally. And they probably will be next year, but I just haven't really looked at it enough yet to know.
It feels more open than this year, at least.
But yeah, there's nothing standing out
there's
already.
There's no Tears of the Kingdom.
Basically, yeah.
At least not. Well, you never know. Game Awards.
Exactly. That will be I try not to watch the Game Awards, but I look at what came up afterwards.
I mean, that's all you need to do when it comes to Critic, right?
Yeah.
Be like, oh, this is releasing. This isn't releasing.
Obviously, I love games, but I don't like shows that are basically just big advertisements. So,
I mean, that's totally valid.
Yeah, for me, for my own personal interest, I can dig why everyone else likes it. But yeah,
I mean, I definitely think there's a pretty good amount of people who just watch the Game Awards to see the reveal.
Oh, absolutely, and I think they know that too, and fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, you know, E3 needed something to replace it. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting as well because I do think the E3 model, as much as the last few years there'd been murmurs about them trying to bring it back, but I think it is kind of dead and gone. Like, it is something like the Game Awards is a much better place to announce your big thing, or directs, or state of plays, or that kind of stuff.
It's one of those things where I do think it's a bit unfortunate it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But like E3 kind of screwed their system a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to talk. Like this kind of goes back to what you were saying about how players can interact with publishers and developers more easily now. Well, the reverse is true as well.
Totally.
Where, you know, your Nintendos, your Sonys, your Microsofts, they can really directly communicate with the customer a lot more.
Yeah, and control what they're doing and not have to spend heaps of money on it either. So
Exactly.
But I know what you mean, though. I think it is a shame that something like E3 doesn't exist. Like, it's nice to have a one big kind of festival thing. And
right. Which is one reason the Game Awards like exists, but it's not the same.
Yeah, and it's still nice, but it's not a total replacement, you know? Like,
yeah. I think it's almost because, like, for one thing, the Game Awards do have a purpose outside of just revealing stuff.
Yeah.
Whether one is particularly interested in it or not, who can say? But, like, it's clearly there is another reason for it to exist. And that means it does have the same atmosphere.
I think I also have a bit of nostalgia for, you know, the big publishers showcases and stuff at E3. Like, as much as they suck because they're all marketing BS, like, watching the Xbox showcase is always fun. Watching the PlayStation's fun. Watching Bethesda and Todd Howard get up and tell you some bullshit is always fun. You know?
Watching EA show FIFA and all this another year and think that people give a shit.
Yeah. And what car are they going to put on stage this year?
The fact they started putting a car up there every year was so funny.
Yeah. Or like the goofy stuff, like, well, I don't know if it was, I don't know when it was, but it was more recent when like Vin Diesel came out for the Fast and Furious game.
Oh, God.
And did a really bad presentation.
Hey, well, you know, we got Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves came out for Cyberpunk. And yeah, I love it's all goofy and horrible and, you know, completely stupid. But it's kind of nice in its own tackiness, I think. Like,
I think another thing is that since it was all concentrated in one area, like directs and state of plays are nice, but they rarely overlap. They rarely, you know, you don't know when they're going to happen. It was nice to have like a concentrated event where you could all get in a car together with your friends and kind of just watch what kind of stupid bullshit was going to happen.
Yeah, even if you're like just totally taking the piss and ripping the shit out of them, like, that's kind of fun because you still get to see the new games.
And sometimes it led to some pretty major stuff too, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, the Xbox One reveal definitely was not good for Xbox.
Well, and yeah, that changed their whole thing, didn't it? Like,
pretty much. I mean, like I said, Don Matrick there really kind of, or going way back, Sony walks up after Sega had their announcement, $299, walk off the stage like a badass.
Well, and that's, you know, as much as in the real world, I'm like, yeah, I wish, you know, every game was on every console and every platform, so everyone got an opportunity to play whatever they want. I kind of like the whole console wars thing just because of that funny shit that happens.
I mean, there's definitely a fun element. There's honestly also business reasons it's good that it's not quite like that too in some ways too.
I mean, the competition is good as well, yeah, but I think people, obviously some people take it too seriously, but I think if you're having a good time with it, like, and I like seeing when companies do have fun with it as opposed to take it too seriously, like the whole Xbox One thing where Sony came out with an ad saying, this is how you share a game on Sony.
God, that was so good.
Like on a PlayStation, and then just hand it to each other. All right, there we go.
And then they just cut to the logo right after.
Yeah, and it's like, you know exactly what they're saying. But
I know, it was so good.
But I love that sort of stuff. That's like, you know, good times.
It is.
But,
and then sometimes you get the funny cringe where you have Wii music on stage for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I dislike marketing crap just about as much as anyone, but
I mean, if it's gonna exist, it may as well be entertaining, right?
Totally. At least have some fun with it. But yeah.
God, can you imagine if we had to do E3 showcases with Fantasy Critic League?
Yeah, that'd be rough.
Have to showcase. You got to showcase all the games we drafted. Really play them up for the reviewers.
See, I'd just be bad at it. I'd be that guy who's like gets all the shit on Twitter because he just kind of stood there and read out his party piece and then left the stage.
He's like, well, I'm done.
Yeah. But yeah, that's hilarious.
It is.
But it's also nice. I like seeing but you can see it in other ways though, like live streaming and stuff. But I like seeing devs get up and talk about their game, and like no matter whether it interests me or not, the fact that they're just passionate about what they're doing. When that comes through, that's really nice because it goes, oh, okay, cool. There are cool people working in this industry.
I agree with that a lot. I think, when it comes to E3 and the Game Awards to an extent too.
Yeah.
Have that happen instead of like generic corporate guy.
Yeah.
Or Keanu Reeves or whatever tends to be pretty fun.
Yeah, like I want the like weird indie developer dude who's never been on stage before to tell me how good his game is or how much he's excited for you to play his game. Like,
yeah, definitely.
That to me is really cool because it, humanizes the whole thing.
It's got that genuine enthusiasm sometimes, you know what I mean?
Totally. It just takes the shine off the cynical side of it all.
Pretty much.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll all have things to say about the Game Awards when they roll around. But there'll be something else in future as well, I'm sure, that will...
When Silk Song Shadow drops, we'll all be flipping out.
You'll notice the silence when I don't respond to anything on Discord.
You just post a sad emoji and we...
Yeah. That's what, you won't hear from me for the rest of the year.
Emergency podcast, mostly to help my feelings.
Yeah, and it's just me on my own crying into a microphone. No. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be an interesting last month, which is fantastic because, yeah, as we say previously, it's been pretty much a sure thing by now. So,
yeah, pretty much.
It's going to be exciting. And yeah, I look forward to it. There's been a few new players who've said they're interested already, and I may have something else to announce earlier in the year that could be exciting, but
Ooh,
I haven't even told Fro that.
spicy.
But we'll get to that when we get to it.
You're going to build up the mystery for your mid-season E3 reveal of a new Fantasy Critic.
Yeah, see, I'm trying to do a bit of marketing here, and plant seeds. But yeah,
Here's why we're the league you should pick and not those other guys.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I'm excited. It's going to be cool. And yeah, anything else you'd like to add, Mr. FrozenRoy, before we end this?
Admittedly, I'm not too sure. I feel like we've covered quite a few topics tonight.
Yeah,
honestly,
had a couple of tangents, which, as is tradition.
I mean, it's good to have some tangents, break it up a little.
Totally.
I know. I'm excited for a few months from now or whatever it'll be when we'll get to talk about the next draft. I always like doing the big draft breakdowns.
Yes. The next recording we'll be doing will be the post-draft review, which is always fun because it's always full of surprises for me at least.
You know what might have been interesting? I don't know if it'd be something we'd ever do. It almost would have been interesting if we had like a mini podcast where we looked back on our draft predictions and see how right or wrong we were.
I was actually thinking about that for this episode a bit, but didn't get my head around it really.
Yeah, I mean we had a lot of ground to cover because it was so close to.
Yeah, but I think yes, definitely that's something I think would be fun to do in future. Maybe we can think about that next year, and it's good to make some notes early on to then refer to later, basically. So
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we'll keep that in mind next year, and I think towards the end of next year, or basically when the draft picks have all been released, we can see how we went. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, I don't really have anything else to add either. I've pretty much covered everything, I think. And yeah, just looking forward to how 2023 is going to pan out and how 2024 is going to start.
Pretty much. I, for one, expect good things.
And I do agree. I think 2023 has been the most jam-packed and exciting year we've had so far.
Definitely.
So let's keep
I
going
mean,
up.
I think like in 2021 we only had one person get over 90, and this
Yeah.
year we have what, 4 right now, but I only
Yeah.
need like 0.7 to get to 90, so we'll say 5.
Yeah, there will be more.
There is another.
And yeah, I mean, I can't believe that it's just so close. So yeah, but that's the best way it could be. So I'm really happy.
Oh, one last thing I will add. If Leo loses, I hope he gives a defeated villain monologue.
Absolutely. We'll see if we can make that happen. So yeah, with that, I think we can wrap it up and say thank you very much to everyone who has been listening. We hope it's been informative and entertaining. And
Yep.
by all means, hit us up on the usual channels if you have anything
And
to
if
add.
you have to, maybe even an unusual channel.
Or maybe there's some I haven't thought of yet that would be quite delightful.
Yeah. It's definitely been good coming on again. I always enjoy doing these with you.
Yeah, it's a good time. And it's always nice to kind of look back and have a different perspective on it than just what's happening right now kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's also nice just to have your different perspective from because like we've said, I've kind of done like fantasy football for a long time, but this is like adjacent to it. And it's nice to have different perspectives on that as well.
Well, that's definitely one thing I've learned this year after talking to you about like the way you think about trades and the way you think about drafting from like a fantasy football kind of idea. It's definitely changed my view of the league, and maybe that's why I'm doing a little bit better this year. So
yeah, maybe you got a bit sharper.
So maybe I really have to
guys,
thank
the
you.
podcast is not only entertaining; it doesn't just tell you the rules. It's also good for helping you win.
Yeah, enter testimonials here. But yeah, that'll do us. We've actually been a bit shorter than I was expecting, so that's kind of nice as well.
Yeah, we didn't go 4 hours this time.
Yeah,
maybe if we had stayed on Starfield, could have gone another hour.
that could be a special retrospective that we can do sometime. But yeah, that's all from me. Thanks everyone for watching. By all means, ask questions, do whatever. Look forward to seeing who signs up. And yeah, anything else from you, Fro?
No, just bye.
See you later, everybody.